All right, so we've got our video number 2, and this is going with the form section of our design that we're going to do. So in the form section, you're going to draw a design that includes at least 5 different types of forms. The main thing to think about is the forms are just three-dimensional shapes. So it's going to at least show one side to it and just make it clear that it does have a side, that it has dimension and that sort of thing. Just make sure that your drawing has a variety of different thicknesses and sizes, and spend time to make an interesting, detailed, neat, balanced design. In other words, if you look at my example right here, not that you want to copy my example, but I've got different forms. Think about having some things, like some main things in your foreground, maybe something kind of leading away from that in your background, and you might have in your further background some things like these are little floating forms back here. So let's just look a little bit, and I'm sure I have an example. Yeah, this goes into how you turn a shape more into a form. So if you're like, what in the world do I do? You can look at this. I'm sure there's other examples on the internet. This kind of takes you step by step. Of course, y'all know how to draw a box. You've drawn a box in 3D. We've been working forever on that. So you probably feel pretty good about that. I wanted to show you some more examples of some forms that I've drawn. So you've got a front to this, and then I drew a little side to that. And you've got, usually you have something and there's a little dimension on the side. This is clearly a form. This has a little bit of value on it, so that looks like a form, looks like a little sandcastle here. So a lot of times too with forms, you're going to have, and you don't necessarily have to put value on here, but you could actually fill in, like, like this little one side was filled in just to show a little bit of dimension, and that does actually help when you're doing a design with form on it. So keep those things in mind when you're working here. All right, and I've got just some more examples about shape and form and the differences, and I've got some more like more of a natural free form, and then more of a geometric type form. All right. The next thing that we're going to get into is value. So you guys, and like I showed y'all before, y'all are going to be adding value. Okay. You're going to be adding some value on your actual work of art that you guys are going to be creating. And the first value that y'all are going to do is smooth value. And then you're going to have pointillism value, and then you're going to have crosshatched value. So the smooth value, you can see, like in this example, it clearly, you don't have any texture on it, but you have a range from value from dark and a medium, light, and then you have white right here. There, in some regards, in some worksheets that you might find, the value would be a little bit more extreme. So you might have more of a range of value as you go. If you look on the next page, this actually is a really good diagram as to what I'm talking about here on this. So this was a worksheet that I found on the internet that talks a little bit about your smooth values. So one thing that I would recommend before you guys start with doing your value shading, and I'm actually going to do a little demonstration for you on the smooth value, is I would recommend y'all get your, if you have your pencils that you guys, I put on your little list to order, one thing I would recommend y'all do, and this goes from light to dark, is to have a 2H pencil, which is rather a light pencil, and then 2B is sort of a medium value pencil, and then a 6B is a very soft, dark value. So this is like a hard pencil lead, this is kind of a medium, and this is a dark. So I would definitely use this for my light areas, and then when you start building with your mediums, you could use the 2B, and then your 6B when you get darker. Now, if you don't have these, if you have a couple of different drawing pencils, one that's light, one that's dark, that is absolutely fine. If you don't have any drawing pencils, you can use a regular 2B pencil, and it works fine. This would just help you to get the value that you need really quick. One thing I would recommend y'all do before you actually use your pencils is to sharpen them really good, and get a really nice art eraser if you don't already have one. Some of you guys may have a kneaded eraser, some of y'all may actually have a white eraser. Mine's black. Doesn't mean it's worse or better, but it's the one that I use. So I'm probably gonna have time to do the value, the smooth one on this particular video, and then I'll go to the other ones in another video that I'm doing. So we're gonna, actually I'll do this, and you're welcome to do this with me if you wanna you'll get your paper out right now, you certainly can, or if you just want to observe and just see what you can do later on with this. So anyway, so what I'd recommend y'all do is actually look at my example as you go, but you're going to go from light to dark. So this is going to be white. This little section is going to be white. And so what is next to white, you're going to have like a kind of like this is going to be almost white, so you're going to barely touch your surface as you go with this. It's kind of like you're taking your pencil, and it's almost like it's a feather, and you're just being really soft, or your mom is telling you don't be rough with the baby. It's kind of like just be super light. So let's see how this looks on the, yeah, you can see a little something. You can take your finger and blend some of that if you're, if it's a little uneven. With a value, sometimes I'll circle my value. The main thing is try to make it even as you go. Okay, so that's my light area. Like I said, we're leaving this little part white. And then what I'm going to do, I'm still going to use my 2H. And I'm still going to go light. But I'm going to start pressing down a little bit harder in just a minute. So what I'm doing at this moment is I am matching basically what I have put right here. All right, so these two, they kind of match. This one may be a little bit darker. So after I put a base down of that, I'm going to press down just a little bit harder. And you can see I'm starting to get more of a range of value. I drew these lines for you guys so that you all would be able to have some kind of guideline as you go. Because when you're first learning to value shade, number one, you need to understand that your value is going to go in the shape of your objects. You can see how this is a very rounded area. But then also, I mean, it's a very intimidating thing if you don't know where to start and where to stop your particular value. So this, you can see there's a nice transition between these two. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my 2B pencil right here. So with this value, I'm trying to match what I just did before, and then I'm going to make it a little bit darker as I go here. But initially it's always good to kind of match, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make my pressure even as I do this. So that would be the main thing to tell you as y'all go, is try to keep your pressure of your pencil consistent. If your pencil lead is not sharpened, if it's starting to get a little dull, I definitely would sharpen it, because it's going to make a difference in the consistency and the quality of your value right there. So this pretty much, if you look at both of these, they match pretty well. So in that case, because they are starting to match, I'm going to go a little bit darker with my 2B so that there's going to be a difference. So you want there to be a difference. You want there to be an even distribution of darks and an even, you don't want it to jump, right? So the transition, you want it to be fairly even. All right. And you may have to go back to some of your other layers and even those out if you need to. You may have to mess a little bit with the contrast. just so it's a nice little transition. So this actually looks pretty good. So the next little section that we're going to be doing is we've got our dark section, and that dark section you're going to have your 6B pencil. They do actually make an 8B pencil, so if you have an 8B pencil in your pack, if you want to use that, that's perfectly fine. But I'm going to stick with my 6B. All right, now you see there's a little bit of a teeny tiny line right here that's below the dark value here. This is actually going to be white right here. So when you have a dark area, you can kind of see here is really, really dark. Usually there's a little bit of a white or lightish reflection that occurs between the end of your object and when the shadow begins, your cast shadow begins. So I'm looking at the timing of my video, and it's obvious that I need to make another video for you guys. So we're reaching over the 10-minute mark here. So I'll get into how you make your cast shadow and all that good stuff in just a minute. So y'all hang on tight, and I'm gonna do my video number 3 in just a little bit. So just go back, look at this thing from different angles. What will happen is when you, and I just stood up, when you stand up, you're going to see some little unevenness and things like that in your values. So I'm working on my previous layer that I did as well as my current layer, and just work really hard to make these things look smooth, make these things look neat, and make these things transition really well. So this isn't bad at all. I could probably work a little bit longer smoothing it, but for the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to stop this video.